Welcome, welcome, welcome to Ideas That Matter. And here we are in Toronto or San Diego or Vancouver or Germany or Scotland. Anyway, we've got a wonderful array of people who have gathered again to explore threshold for change. Our hosts today are Beth Gallagher, Kirk Hinkleman, and from LifeWorks, and they also have been joined by Sally Siegel, who's their office wizard, and Joe Donofrio from Choices, and they'll be leading it through the session. On the backside, Linda Kahn is manipulating the world so we can all see, and Kathy Hollins is underneath a lot of the stuff that Kathy doesn't like to be seen. But here we all are, delighted to have you. And rather than take up more of your time, over to Beth and Joe and Kirk.
Thank you, Jack. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming today. The first thing that we're going to do real quick is we're going to just do a real quick check in. I mean, sorry, not
we're out here.
See ya. Thanks for coming. Peace out. We're going to do a really quick 6-minute check-in. We're going to do it in groups of 4. So we're going to break into groups of 4 real briefly. So what we want you to do is just talk about how you're showing up today. So it means that we want everybody to have a chance to talk. Just share for a minute or so, and then we're going to come back into the room. You're going to be taken. You don't need to do anything. The breakout rooms are going to be done for you. You're just going to zoom right into it, and then you're going to zoom right out. So I don't know if Sally or Linda is going to be doing that, but someone behind the scenes is magically going to take you into that breakout room. So the question is, how are you showing up today?
I'm doing that.
Oh, and Heather Simmons is coming into the room right now. Today's her birthday.
All right, I'm going to admit her right now. Oh, there you go.
Before we go to breakout, we should say happy birthday to her. Is she in?
Yep.
Sorry to crash in.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Heather!
Happy birthday!
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. You're lovely.
Anyway, without further ado, we're not going to belabor that. Sorry.
No, that's it. Move on. Move along.
Sending everybody into breakout rooms. How are you showing up today? Groups of 4 ready. Take it away. Zoom people.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. I think we are all back. And so Beth, Joe, and I are going to a little bit today explain what Threshold for Change is, and a lot bit today try to just embody what we do in Threshold for Change with the greater community of Threshold for Change citizens that make up our body in California. So we're going to do a little bit of storytelling and telling you what and why, and a lot more bit just kind of being with it and, sort of hopefully embodying that. So that's the first part of that process would be that we start every gathering in Threshold for Change with a grounding exercise, a meditation. And we're going to do that today, this morning. I decided to pull the meditation that we used for our first call back in June as a community of people, so that we could all experience, hopefully back in a time machine, where we were at when we started this project. So all this requires is an open heart and open mind, and a willingness to just follow along. So if you can get yourself situated in your seat or your chair, shed your laps and hands of anything that you might be holding or fiddling with. If you're willing to, close your eyes. You can have your hands resting in your lap or wherever they're comfortably resting, face up or face down, palms up or palms down. As straight up and dignified a posture as you can of honoring of your body and yourself. We're going to take 3 breaths together as a group, collectively. So the first one, big in through our noses. Hold a minute and exhaling through our mouth. Next big one together in through your nose. Hold for a moment and out through our mouths. Last big one together in through our noses. And exhaling through our mouth. With eyes remaining closed, just sort of merge into a comfortable breath. Whatever your breath is, if it's big, shallow, whatever, just comfortable, never forced. And as we walk through this meditation and your brain and your mind think, first off, congratulations, that is what your brain and mind are supposed to do. But your breath can act as an anchor. Acknowledge the thought, move on from it, and come back to the breath, the rising and falling in our chest, cool air in through the nose, the warm air leaving. The breath in and out like a swell in the ocean, like the tides. So what we're after this morning is a collective stillness. The elements present in this practice, providing us with centering and focus. Today we find ourselves in the cracks. As the ground shifts and moves beneath us, we can look at these cracks as troubling, or we can look at these cracks as portals of light, inviting us to wedge ourselves into them. Hold them open. Hold this tension as a means of change. These cracks give us pause. We've been forced to stop, to reflect, to observe what we've been doing. The word essential has been used more in our lives than ever. What comes with that is the idea of what is non-essential. We've had the unique opportunity to notice things, procedures, policies, services, and elements of the greater system we find ourselves in that are non-essential. So our challenge is, what will we do with these identified non-essential elements that comprise our day-to-day lives? Will we be willing to let them go? Will we be willing to move forward, suspending the voices of judgment, cynicism, and fear? John O'Brien writes, "Within ourselves and in conversation with others, we will hear the voices that try to numb us from sensing the impacts of structural violence, absence us from the highest possibilities, and frighten us away from inventing new structures and practices. If we take a moment, reflect on what these voices say to us, and when they show up, we can notice some of the ways we limit ourselves by shutting down curiosity, blunting compassion, and discouraging reaching out and stepping forward. Reflecting on our own voice of judgment can show us some of the prejudices we reproduce. Reflecting on our own voice of cynicism can show us how we retreat from exercising power with others. Always coming back to discover how to hold the space as the ground shifts will put us in position to act responsibly." So what next? We start by bending the beam of observation, first and foremost, onto ourselves. Being clear about where we stand. Leaning into the importance of leading with open mind, open heart, and open will. Here we sit together today as human beings in unison around the idea that we can affect real, sustainable change. And as Sonia Renee Taylor reflected way back in March of 2020, we will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than that we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. So as we exhale today, collectively, let us let go of that which is non-essential. Let's be in stillness for as long as we need to be sure that each step we take into the darkness of the unknown, with hopes of transformation, we bring light. Okay, when you're ready, you can wiggle your toes and wiggle your fingers and open your eyes and come back into our space together. I will definitely post the O'Brien quote or passage, which comes from an essay he wrote, into the chat for everyone. And we're going to show a short video. Some of those on the call may have seen this already, but we agreed that we thought it might be good to show it while we're on the call together because it will lead into some of the questions we'll be holding. So Jack, if you can whip up your video magic, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Terry Chapman. I'd like to address how do we move from reaction to response? When faced with challenges, we individually and collectively are hardwired for reaction, which often makes matters worse. How can we exercise the capacity to respond with less reactivity so we can contribute to more healing and wholeness? Whatever our challenges today, and we know we're facing huge challenges, be they personal, communal, spiritual, or even planetary, we can think of ourselves as being at an immense crossroads, a threshold, a choice point. This is a moment that offers enormous possibilities for transformation and at the same time, obstacles and inherent dangers. At such thresholds on our path, we need to have a clear vision, fresh thinking, and wise hearts to help us not only navigate our lives, but to do so with less reactivity and more equanimity and love. The word threshold comes from the age-old practice of threshing or beating the husk away to reveal the kernel of grain. What is revealed at these threshold or liminal in-between places is what lies at the heart of the matter. Throughout human history, human beings have considered threshold places to be places of danger and opportunity, where caution needs to be exercised. Fear of the unknown, uncertainty, questions regarding the way forward feel threatening. Of course they do. And we are hardwired for reactivity when threatened. Threat elicits a reaction which, because reactivity is sourced from the limbic system, that most primitive part of our brain, we can make rash choices and often make matters worse. And yet we know there's more to be tapped into, more wisdom, more courage, more compassion. We, each of us, have the capacity to engage the more evolved part of our brain and make more thoughtful choices in how to respond to disruption. It's this part of us that holds deep potential, huge potential for resilience in our lives. Beneath or inside the life we lead every day is another life. This is what I believe. Another life that runs like a subterranean river beneath our ordinary world of story, of work and family and ambition, money, pleasures, grief. There's another, like a river, a more enduring story that is deep and wide and carries with it abundance and healing. When we become aware of the story we are living in and the deeper source, we become more resilient in the face of unfolding disruption. And when we tap into that source, we can find a golden thread of purpose that when we pull on it and follow it can lead to our destination or our destiny. I love what Rumi said, be still, sit and listen, because you're drunk and we're at the edge of the roof. Be still, sit and listen, because you're drunk and we're at the edge of the roof. So the first thing that we need to do when faced with disruption is to sit still, really to pause, to take a breath. And when we pause and just kind of come back to kind of a sense of presence, there are three questions I believe that we need to ask that will help us find the way forward. First is, who are our allies, our mentors, or as the Irish poet Joe Donofrio framed, our anam caras, our soul friends, who are with us at this place on the path? Who are our teachers that we can count on, our soul friends at this place? We pause and we ask, where are they and who are they? The second question that I invite us to ask is, who is our community? What is our sangha, our fellowship, our church? When we are at a choice point or a threshold point, we need to develop that kind of deep sense of community. It's so important. And the third thing is, what is our practice? I once wrote a poem that I think is like a definition of prayer, and it goes like this. Each breath attended to, every step taken with true intention, every rambling thought let go of, every slight pause before acting, hollows out a broad place in the center of one's being, a deepened, uncramped place where apathy and cynicism are replaced with the flow of compassion. This essentially is the miracle of prayer. However you frame your practice, whatever works for you, find it, deepen it, practice it, especially in these times of disruption. So three things. Who are our friends, our anam carers, our soul friends, our allies? Who are our teachers? Where and who is our community? And how can I deepen that community? And what are my practices that can help me stay grounded in this disruptive place? One of my teachers was the Jewish mystic Abraham Heschel, who wrote in his book, The Sabbath, in the tumultuous ocean of time and toil, there are islands of stillness, where when we enter their harbor, we reclaim our dignity. Now is an opportunity for all of us to find those islands of stillness so we can reclaim our dignity. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Donofrio, and that is Terry. Terry Chapman is a good friend of mine, and we felt that what was really kind of important for us is to set the foundation of kind of how we started, and by doing that, we wanted to show you this video because that's really what kicked us off. Sitting home with this pandemic stirred up a lot of things for a lot of us, individually, personally, as well as for the work that we did. And it kind of like the meditation that Kirk had shared, it really opened up what was essential, what was not. And I don't remember exactly how I came across this video, but it hit me at the right time. I quickly shared it with Kirk, who shared it with Beth, and basically we were off and running, which was, it really set the foundation of kind of how our calls were going to go and what we needed to bring in terms of practices. And so what we felt that was really key for us to be able to share today was kind of how we started and how we evolved, and kind of the way that we're running our time together is pretty similar to exactly how we run each of our gatherings. to be able to let emerge. So Kirk and Beth are my soul friends. So they were the first ones that I took a risk and, and said, hey, I think we need to do something. We've always wanted to do something on an ongoing basis. And I think time is now. And so that's kind of how it started. And we led with Terry's video. It just made sense not to recreate the wheel. It made sense not to try to wordsmith it. We just kind of used that as our foundation and let it speak for itself and help it guide everybody. And we decided that we were going to keep it in California because we felt that we could have some influence in terms of how we provide services to the people that we care about. I have a daughter who's 12 years old who has autism, and I see that we need to do some work so that when she's an adult, that there's a little bit more flexibility in our system that works towards people and not towards system. So what we thought we would do is assist us with a conversation in a breakout room. And what we're going to do is send you guys off into breakouts for 15 minutes to explore some of the questions that Terry laid the foundation for what's happening. The pandemic created a lot of openings, as well as it might have created a lot of reasons to escape and to get scared. And so it was a really great opportunity to slow down and to really kind of start sitting with the questions and start sitting with our feelings and what's in our gut. And so the crossroads is kind of where we're at. We're in a threshold. We're in, we could go backwards or we could go forwards. We could have a finite view of how we should support people and react, or we can have an infinite type of possibility thought. And so we wanted to create the possibility that we could have some infinite thinking. And so that's what we tried to do. So what we're going to do is send you into breakout rooms, and we have some questions that you're going to explore with. So we find ourselves collectively at a crossroads, and before we take action, we must go inward in stillness, exactly what Terry said. So what are you observing? What are you noticing for yourself and for those around you in relationship to how this pandemic has hit you in terms of the work that you do? We're going to explore those questions, and Linda and the group are going to send you we'll put those in the breakout rooms for you. I think Kirk and I am going to join you. Beth's going to work on the tech team, and then I think we'll join in one of those groups. And so we're all going to be a part of this and be a part of the conversation with you. So when you're ready, Linda. So welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had some wonderful conversations, and you probably left it with needing more time to talk. And that's kind of the good thing about creating. All three of us, Kirk, Beth, and I, and this whole learning community that you guys are a part of here, believe in conversations are the way that humans think and reflect and be able to gather together and kind of create some really good things. So we really wanted to emulate kind of what we're doing and sharing that. So what we want to do is just do a quick harvest of kind of what landed for you guys. So if we can raise our hands and then we'll call on you and just briefly just kind of share some thoughts, just to emulate kind of how we move the group through, but just what landed for you, what were your inklings and knowings, what touched you that people said, and if you just raise your hand, then one of us will call on you, we'll just
raise your hand through the reactions on the bottom of your screen.
Yes, thank you.
There's a raise your hand icon.
Look at that techie Beth.
Well, I mean, if you need any IT help, please come to me. That's what I do.
That's awesome.
Everybody's rushing to raise their hands.
That's okay. Silence is golden. So reflection. Actually, in mostly all of our sessions, we also did some journaling, and if you're trying to get your thoughts together, this is a great time to do that. And I like to look at it as small community, large community. So we break you into groups where you're a large community. A small community kind of broken up in different parts of the world and the country. different countries possibly. And then we have a large community of us all together on this path or on this journey. And so it's nice to hear a few reflections so that we can kind of see what's happening in your different conversations and see what are the similarities or the differences in terms of our conversations.
Tom Kohler's hand is up.
All right, Tom, thank you.
You're muted, buddy.
You're
Thank you. Cheryl had a great word. She invented a word, which is to commiserate, which, bookends co-create, obviously. So we'd like to add that respectfully to the lexicon, to commiserate.
Yeah, I said we commiserate, and then in commiserating, we become commiserable. That's what I
miserable.
We're not advocating it. We're simply reporting it.
Interesting. Yep. True.
Great.
And as you know, they put new words, X number of new words into the dictionary every year. And I'd like to suggest that whoever we take this on as a personal collective mission. That the word commiserate enters the English language.
Thank you, Tom. That's awesome.
I will nominate that. I like that.
Thanks, Cheryl. She came up with it.
So, Tricia, go ahead and unmute. I think I got you next. Well,
unmute. Okay. Hi.
There. Hey.
All right. I'm going to take my hand off here. So I got to participate in a room with Sheldon and Joe and David. And one of the things that David commented on was, and I had to write it down because I like the way you said it, organic relational community. And I think it just talks about that, going back to that sense of belonging and having to rethink that in that organic manner. So I really liked that. That resonated with me. So thank you, David, for sharing that.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
And in our group, Sheldon, I wanted to share one of the things you said. Hopefully it's okay. He to live in the space of the unknowing, which is kind of what we created a little bit. I don't know if I'm quoting that right, Sheldon, but it really, I wrote that down because it was really something about, we were in a place of unknowing of what we were doing. There was, and to be able to be comfortable with that. And as Terry in the video talks about reaction and talks about how our system addressed the situations that were going on, because we're not comfortable with being able to sit and say, hey, I don't have an answer. I don't know what to do. I'm going to bring together some people and think through it. That takes a lot of work and a lot of vulnerability and a lot of trust in yourself as, putting yourself out there, because you're supposed to have the answers if you run an organization or if you, what have you. And so I love that. Live in the space of unknowing is one of the things that he, when we were talking about it. So it's a great quote. So a few more, just a couple more. That would be great, and then we'll kind of transition to story time.
Susan has her hand up.
Yeah, I was mentioning that I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I was mentioning something that was for me very inspirational. Certainly, because of this pandemic, we're realizing how horrible the long-term care facilities are. Not only for the elderly, but also for people with developmental disabilities that are going into them right after high school. And this has all been hidden to most people. And so what I am really excited about is I think in Ontario in particular, we've really, we're not relenting. These places need to be closed. We go back to when the institutions for people with developmental disabilities were closed and people are living in more local housing or in their own place. So we know how to do it. And so we have to be relentless, and I'm really glad to see that there is so much going on to shift that. And so that's hopeful, and that's a big thing. So when that falls apart, then I think it will lend to other things, because we're saying we all care about each other. We cannot leave people behind. Nobody's better than anybody else. So that's where I get my hope from.
Super. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thanks, Susan.
Okay, great. So we just wanted to take a brief moment. Some of us on the call might be thinking, what the hell are we talking about here in Threshold for Change? So we wanted to spend just a few minutes with a little bit of storytelling. Joe sort of alluded to it after the Terry video about coming across that video right when the pandemic hit, sending it to me. I sent it immediately to Beth, and we decided to get together on a phone call and talk about our feelings about it and doing something. The context of this is that Joe is a service provider in the Los Angeles area. He actually started the first supported living agency in the state of California, customizing supports for people wanting to live inclusive lives in the community. And then Beth in 2004 started LifeWorks down in San Diego, which falls off the same energy tree as Choices in LA. And I joined up with LifeWorks in 2007. And so we've been over the years in relationship with each other from afar and working on projects, heart projects. I love that Joe referred to Beth and I as soul friends. That is an absolute accurate statement. We are soul friends. So we've always talked about wanting, and so we experience the same feelings and day-to-day happenings in the service system in the state of California, and we co-miserate with each other a lot about this through storytelling about what we're experiencing. So when the pandemic happened and Joe sent the video, we, all three of us, I think our souls collectively felt a call to do something. So what we did was we decided to notice and find the cracks, the crack being the pandemic. So you see the candle off to the left was the initial feeling. And so we got to writing. We thought to ourselves, well, what's important for convening people? Who do we want to be present? We knew we wanted to, as best we could, reach the entire state of California geographically. That's a big, huge area, right? California is huge. I can drive north from my house for 12 hours and still be in California. If you went latitudinally across the state to the eastern seaboard and drove north 12 hours, you would probably hit 7, 8, 9 states. So it's big. So we wanted to make sure we had every region covered. We wanted to make sure that we had a cross section of the service system, meaning that we're not going to reproduce these gatherings of director level people of service providers. So we have people who experience disability on the call. We have people who are family members on the call. We have people who are community living support service providers like Joe, Beth, and I on the call. We have people who are in employment on the call. We have people who are from state council on the call. We have people from regional centers on the call. We have disability rights California attorneys on the call. So we felt like it was important that every single role in the state of California service system was represented. And then what we wanted to do in the design of the call, which is use theory use. So you see at the top of the image here, above the stop sign that's the state of California's flag that we morphed into a stop sign. So because of the biggest component of this is that we have decided to stop, just like the meditation says, just like Terry said in the video. We're using theory U as a framework for Threshold for Change. So a big part of what our hope was to help orient that framework to people over about a 6-month period. But we wanted to, as soon as we used roles as a way to invite people, we want to completely just drop and let go of those roles and get to a place where we have the initial 45 to 50 people who accepted the invitation from across the state start to see each other as human beings who live in the state of California first and foremost, and get it here and in our hearts, so that we have, as Joe said, 45 to 50 soul friends who comprise Threshold for Change. So that was the initial call. So we got to writing, we sent out an invitation to about 12 core people who we knew would get it, the heart of it. And then we invited them to then invite 2 or 3 people, knowing that those 12 core folks get it enough and get Joe, Beth, and I enough to know what we're up to and what our intention is, and trusting that they would invite people who also have it in the heart and in their minds as well. So that's sort of the design of the call, and moving forward. So we had a call once a month. That's the overarching Threshold for Change, so we can land and orient people through the Theory U process. And then at the end of it, people go off and create local hubs. This is why it's geographically important for everyone to be represented, so that Threshold for Change is just a call to gather and create sort of a kindling to a fire that will spread across the state of California, that people have the energy to go take this and create local community hubs and go through the U process with people who weren't on this Threshold for Change call, and then create little hubs that we'll get to later in the call today. But that's the initial design. The framework is Theory U, and the invitation that we wrote included a lot of the stuff that you saw in Terry's video, and a little bit of a story about why these 3 soul friends decided to create the invitation. So I'll kick it over to Joe to talk a little bit more about it.
They were soul friends.
That's what soul friends do.
That's why we protect each other from our own selves, right? So, I guess, speaking from, being soul friends, it just, we've done some sessions. We did a virtual call, gosh, years and years ago, that, probably was maybe a foundational idea that we had, and then it just went away, and it wasn't maybe the right time. And then we've done some gatherings locally here that we've put together, and that really kind of solidified sort of our way of being with each other, and how we like to bring people in, and then in the bigger vision of what we had. We knew that we needed to because we were doing something locally within our own organizations, we also felt that the timing was right to be able to start speaking around the essentialness of what's happening. And so we had to bring a way to communicate that to people without telling people how it should be done, and create a foundation that allowed people to explore that themselves and let that emerge. And the Theory U is really what is that's a perfect tool to be able to help people really step into that. We had people develop relationships within the call. So we had people do learning, meeting up with each other in between calls, where they just kind of had a 30-minute to an hour phone conversation to just check in with each other, get to know each other, and sort of really develop that relational component to it. And so we really kind of followed that framework throughout. We provided tools and information about how that can be done on a website that's called Network, Mighty Network. And so that is still where everybody can gather and send information to. We're hoping that we would create a place where people can share their stories about what they're doing when we get to the hubs. Our goal was really to not dictate how it needed to happen, but hopefully letting it emerge by creating this space for people to gather. This whole idea of finite versus infinite. I'm kind of into this Simon Sinek. I'm sure many of you on this call have heard him, and he has a new book out called Infinite Thinking. And that's kind of what we wanted to create, is this mindset that there is possibilities out here. And what Terry had told us about thresholds, we have to have a way of being able to allow that to emerge. At the same time, we also have to bring people from where they're at, and people in this time were pretty low, and faced with lots of crises. And so you have to have an opportunity and a balance to be able to have people explore that with one another and support people through that process. And so that's kind of what we what we really needed to do with everybody is bring people together so that we all can see that even though we came from different parts of the work that we do, that we're all humans and that we're all kind of have a very similar intention of doing right by people and helping people to have a meaningful life. And so giving us time to be able to create our value system, to be able to create our what we believed in and how to help support one another through this was kind of what we wanted to establish through our time. And so Beth's going to share next just kind of a little bit more about the practices that we use within each of the sessions. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
Yeah, so we knew that we had thanks, Joe. We knew that we had a lot of really different people that experienced the practice of providing services and doing the work within the state of California in a lot of different ways. So we intentionally created an abundance of intentional practices within Threshold for Change that we had utilized over the years so that we could kind of shift people out of regular meeting platforms, really trying to get people to dare to lead and move them into a really different kind of platform so that people could see a difference in what we were talking about. We didn't want to lecture. We didn't want to act like we knew what the answers were, because we don't. We just wanted to hold the space. So in order to hold the space, we needed to show them what that looked like, because if we're just going to keep doing meetings and spinning out, nothing's going to change. So what we really wanted to do was create the space. So we started every single meeting, or not meeting, we started every single gathering with a meditation. We did a grounding exercise, grounding practice. We encouraged journaling throughout the sessions and encouraged journaling in between gatherings. We obviously used the platform of Theory U. Every session we did some addressing Theory U and what that meant, and kind of did the next level of Theory U, showed them what that meant, applied it to our current situation. We did breakout conversations. We did learning journeys. After our second call, we encouraged people to reach out to a participant that they didn't know. So somebody that could be, 500 or 600 miles away in a different part of the state that they had never met, that hopefully did something completely different than them, that maybe a person that worked in day supports would talk to an attorney, or a parent would talk to somebody who did supported living or something like that. They would talk to and call them and maybe tell their long story. And the other person, they would sit on a Zoom call together for a couple of hours. We threw poetry in there a couple of times. We topped and tailed our meetings with poetry. We talked a lot about vulnerability and authenticity, and the fact that, again, we weren't the people that knew anything. We were just the people that were holding the space. And, we were hoping that people would come with ideas, and we would prototype ideas, and the hubs would be the place where people would prototype. And that after these 4 sessions that we would create the hubs, that those would be the places that we would prototype, and this would go on hopefully for years to come. So authenticity and all that, we talked about it consistently. So those are the kinds of intentional practices that we wove into every single gathering. We talked about it consistently, and as each meeting went along, it just became kind of ritual, and people really felt like it was part of the practice, and it seemed like it was seeping into what they started practicing in their own place of business. So we're hoping that it made sense to them. So I will kick it over to Kirk.
Great, thanks, Beth. So yeah, that was our just little brief. Hopefully now the people who were saying what the hell is going on have a little bit more clarity about what the hell is going on. So with that, we want to move into our second breakout, and we would just want to, we ended with some of the practices that we engage with in Threshold for Change and in our personal lives. And that is our second question. So just like Terry said in the video, what are the practices keeping us strong and grounded in times of disruption? Sally has put that into the chat, and we'll have 15 minutes and our tech team will shoot us into the vortex and we'll come out with a new family. So again, what are the practices keeping us strong and grounded in times of disruption? All right, welcome back, everyone.
Hey, Kirk, we're going to need to make a couple of just minor shifts. So,
okay.
So we're going to need to, in a wake of time, we need to have people respond in the chat versus raising their hand. Just
okay.
Harvest in the chat, if you could.
All right, so Susan already posted something in chat from our conversation. She says,
cool.
I'm dancing through the pandemic and I am connecting to people all over the world through a dancer name. Yeah, Susan, unmute yourself and say that name.
Benashe Sayad.
Thank you.
Lives in California, but she's Iranian and does beautiful, beautiful spiritual dancing that grounds you.
Great, thank you. And she left the website in there if you guys want to look into it. David says, coming back happier after the last breakout room. Awesome.
Cool.
Nithya says, our group agreed that being in this space with TSI has been the best practice. Yeah, that was a conversation. Part of the conversation we had was a sharing that normally we see a group of people in our life one time a year in a specific location. And now we see those folks all the time. So that has been, whether we want to, so sometimes it sucks to be on Zoom all the time, and then other times it's like, wow, without it, we wouldn't be as connected. So, yes, Sylvia says, silence, let what has spoken land. Great. Yeah, that's part of the intention with Threshold for Change, is to create space where people are okay with just sitting in stillness and listening and not feeling the need to talk over someone or just wait for their turn. Joshua says, we talked a great deal about things we do to stay strong is really about the engagement and far less about the outcome, taking things for what it is and not what we wish them to be. Awesome. Dave Hasbury, a recent poem came across my eyes, and off to the Threshold folks for their poetry. Good work finds the way between pride and despair. It graces with health, it heals with grace. It preserves the given so that it remains a gift. By it, we lose loneliness. We clasp the hands of those who go before us and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures passing in and out of life who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no ears hear it except in fragments. Wendell Berry, what are people for? Well, I think that might be a good way to end our harvest for this go round. And Joe, maybe we pivot and just reread that Wendell Berry poem.
Well played.
Real quick, Lori Kimball, our group has also talked about the intentional communities coming together with many folks on this call, people who have shared my values, regular open spaces to gather, connection by soul and place to feel okay being vulnerable. Absolutely. Rita says, we had a theme of refocusing on a whole range of ways of paying more attention to that focus and engaging more in our key purpose. I found this so helpful. Great. Nice. What is the next right step? Shared by Tricia. Awesome. So it sounds like these conversations were incredibly rich, and we're going to move to our final conversation together that Beth is going to hold the question for us.
Yep. So our final breakout question is, who are our allies, our mentors, and our teachers? Who may see you as an ally, a mentor, or a teacher? And we're going to actually shorten this a little bit. So we got to be on our A game, people. 10 minutes. So get ready. We're going to Zoom to your Zoom room. 10 minutes. Who are our allies, mentors, and teachers? And who may see you as an ally, mentor, or teacher? Welcome back. All right, hope you had a fruitful breakout. So what we're going to ask you to do is We're going to harvest by you guys posting in the chat real quick. And in the sake of time, because we're closing in on our time together today, if you could post in the chat and I'll just read a couple of them and then we'll keep moving right along just so that we can honor people's time today. Amanda shared that her 4-year-old is her teacher. Sweet.
And I would say our 38-year-old daughter, Rebecca, has been my teacher. She's full of joy, and she's actually been asked to be on a panel with the Sacred Dance Guild, explaining what is the sacred part about. So it's very exciting, and she's going to be showing some of her film, Dance in the Shadow.
That's awesome, Susan. And Beth said, my teacher is friendship, as this threshold shows a space for the new to arrive through friendship. Thanks, Beth. Sista. Beth M said this, and it was found. Hope I get it right. We were born through friendship, and if we just cultivate friendships and work on that throughout, we can grow. And with that, I'm going to send it over to Kirk.
Thank you. And it's been an amazing 3-4 different conversations and never enough time. The friendship observation is I think we know, Beth, Joe, and I know that as soul friends, that's the foundation of this project. So we know for sure, no matter what direction it takes or what happens, that we've got each other, that we hold each other. And so we just wanted to briefly mention that we've walked through, you've experienced where we started with this community of people in California, and where we're at now is that these local hubs are starting to emerge, right? So we started with 45 to 50 people who accepted the initial call, and now, like Molly and Mammoth is, she moved to Mammoth, and there's a regional center that's like 200 miles from her, and there's nobody really reaching that area of California. So she's starting a hub to start a conversation with people in the community. What can we do to do right by people here? And engaging other people who weren't on that threshold for call. So as these hubs pop up, the community of change agents grows into hundreds and hundreds. And that means there's hundreds of stories that are going to be shared and harvested and sent to the greater service system from the ground up. That's the hope, is that this groundswell from citizens who care enough about each other to listen long enough and to do with one another, create. And so Joe, Beth, and I have become the local hub for the Threshold for Change community. We don't go away. We meet less often, but we're here as a resource and a support to the greater movement, to answer questions. And maybe we meet as a big group on a Zoom call like this once or twice a year instead of every month. But it really is, the magic happens when people go take this energy and pay it forward and create and be with one another. So I think Beth and Joe, did we want to make some space for a couple of questions before we close with a David White message?
Sure.
Okay. We have about
Tom Kohler. Do we have t-shirts? Oh, well, that is kind of our claim to fame. We usually do, right? We probably could.
To be determined, Tom. We'll hit you up. Anybody have a question? They want to unmute or comment? We have about 5 minutes, and then we're going to have Joe Donofrio close us out with some words and send us off our way.
My only comment would be that in the world of Zoom experiences, this is definitely in the top 10% today. This one.
Oh.
Well, thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, I don't do much Zooming, so I don't get a big head. But I mean, just to say, I mean,
I just went from whoo to
no, don't be that way. But but honestly, oh my God. Anyway, big kudos.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
I would agree, Tom. It's probably one of the best Zooms, and I've been doing a lot of them. And actually, it's really been helpful because I've been trying to figure out how to incorporate some stuff into some work that I have coming up. So you just helped me solidify some other work and bringing more of this into that work as well.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Thanks, Sheldon.
I would echo that. I'm a huge fan of Beth for a long time anyway, and now that I've gotten to hear more from Joe and from Kirk and from everyone else, I'm going to be moving the knowledge I got from today into the practice of pulling together a similar movement that I've already been doing here in Massachusetts, and now I'm taking furious notes because you have guided me to the next level of what I'm doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Would it be possible to get the graphic that you shared with your vision? That was so beautiful and I think a good guidance as we start to look into moving.
Yeah, I can do that. And I'll also take this opportunity to send traffic towards the inclusion website because I believe that it's up in the Ideas That Matter area there. I don't know if you can pull it from that, Jack, or if they need a hard file, but it is there. I don't know if you want to say a little thing about that.
The tapes of the videos of these various sessions are gradually going up, and that includes your graphics. So if you go to the ideas that just open our front page, inclusion.com, you'll discover a series of videos, and that includes the graphic. I'm not sure.
I think for me, I'd just like to say thank you so much for the reminder that when you find people who believe in the same things that you believe in, and get together with those people, the energy just explodes. And so what can happen as a result of that is amazing. So thank you for that reminder.
Thanks, Sylvia. Alternatively, also gathering people that don't really have the same ideals that you have and listening to what they have to say is also really helpful. All the people that were on the call didn't have the same ideals that I have, which was fantastic. So hard to hear sometimes, but you know, it was great to hear. So that was intentional. Thanks, Sylvia.
Well, one of the things that we practice always is honorable closure. And with every meeting that we have, every session, something that we try to do within our own meetings that we have just with our staff is have honorable closure. And one of the ways we did that is through poetry. We also open with poetry sometimes, and we shifted it, maybe poetry throughout. We leaned into a lot of David White's work. And part of that was I started you know, when in the pandemic, you're searching for something to ground you and to hold on to. And David White does 3 Sundays, an hour of his poetry that he weaves through leadership. It's amazing. So if you Google David White 3 Sundays, it's a very affordable $60 for 3 Sundays of his wisdom, and he reads his poetry and tells stories that are amazing. And so one of the poems that we read is called Finisterre. I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's from his book Pilgrim. And the journey that we were on was a pilgrim journey. And that's one of the threads that we talked about on one of the sessions. So this is from David White called Finisterre. The road in the end taking the path the sun had taken into the western sea, and the moon rising behind you as you stood where ground turned to ocean. No way to your future now but the way your shadow can take, walking before you cross water, going where shadows go. No way to make sense of the world that wouldn't let you pass, except to call an end to the way you had come. To take out each frayed letter you had brought and light their illuminated corners, and to read them as they drifted on the late western light. To empty your bags to sort this and to leave that, to promise what you needed to promise all along, and to abandon the shoes that brought you here, right at the water's edge, not because you had given up, but because now you would find a different way to tread. And because, through it all, of you would still walk on, no matter how, over the waves. So what we'd like to do is, in honorable closure, if you would like to close with a word on the chat, you can share it out, a voice out loud if you'd like, just a word in terms of your experience and your time together, what landed for you in a word, a short sentence. You can do that in the chat, or if you feel you want to unmic yourself, you can also say it out to the group. Unless Jack and Linda, you have anything that you have to close with, that's usually one of the ways that we'd like to close. So we're good? Okay. It's been a pleasure to be with you all and to be in part of the conversations. I know it was just rich. I learned a tremendous amount in the sessions that I was in. So I value each and every one of you and all the words that you guys had shared for us. So Beth, Kirk, you want anything to close?
Thanks for coming, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
You good?
Yeah, no, nothing more. Thank you.